So here we are again, time for another experiment in art. I have here my 1979 VW Beetle, and it had a little bit of rust around the fenders. And instead of just going and getting new fenders, I was trying to think of how I could use the existing fenders and maybe do something a little artistic to make them kind of cool. So here's my idea. So I thought what I could do is I would take off the paint all the way around the fenders, and I would patch in some metal for any of the big holes, and then I would see if I could carve some cool designs into the fenders using the plasma cutter. So let's strip this down to bare metal. A lot of the fenders had kind of the standard rust holes that you see on a VW Beetle of this vintage, and some surface rust around the headlights. All four fenders have some rust in some places. And so here I am taking the paint off the fender using a 40 grit flap disc and my angle grinder. And I find it so satisfying watching things like this in time lapse, seeing the paint coming off and the nice shiny metal underneath. The idea was to kind of have that swirled metal look. I didn't really want it to look perfect. I wanted it to look a little rough. And then I just welded in a couple of patches where there was the biggest rust holes, which was kind of at the two bottom corners, here and here. I'm no expert welder, and I wasn't really going for having it look perfect anyway. The whole idea is that it looks a little bit kind of rustic, for lack of a better word. So next what I decided to do was just draw out some patterns that I thought that I could easily cut out with the plasma cutter. I didn't really put too much thought into it. I just thought of something that might look kind of interesting and wasn't too busy or too complex. And here I am just drawing the pattern onto the fenders. I'm pretty much just freehanding it. And then what I will do is I will measure for the other side so that the other side is pretty much the same. And we'll see how it goes. So now that my pattern is all drawn, we're going to go and try to cut it out with the plasma cutter. And I did a little kind of teardrop pattern along the edge there too. Let's see how it goes. And now it's time to cut the pattern out with the plasma cutter. I'm just cutting around and then tapping each piece with a little hammer to knock each section out and moving down my pattern from one end of the fender to the other. I think it's going to look pretty cool. So now I have both of them cut. This one here I just finished cutting, so that just needs to be polished down. And this one here has already been polished, so it looks pretty cool. And then I was thinking, what else could I do? So I added this little shark fin and kind of some water teardrops down the side there. And I just got to do that to the other side, and then I'll be done. Here are the fenders back on the car. I think they look pretty awesome. I did put a little piece of round bar on the top edge of the shark fin so that it wasn't like a knife edge. And then I spray painted them both with a clear coat. Now it's time to do the back fenders.